there, my name is Amanda Kulaba, and I am the owner and the founder of PartyInTheArtRoom.com. And Party in the Art Room started out a long time ago as a blog for art teachers. I wanted to share with art teachers how they could use arts integration in their art classrooms. And soon it became popular enough to where it expanded to not just art teachers incorporating other skills and content and standards into their teaching, but I was able to start helping classroom teachers who teach subjects like math and science and ELA. I was able to help those teachers also be able to pull the arts into their classrooms to help them teach their content. So Party in the Art Room today is a resource to help teachers of all types. It doesn't matter what you teach. I am here. Party in the Art Room is here to help you reach your students in a more profound and a much more effective and more joyful manner. This video is just a welcome video. I just want to say hi, but it's also, the video that we're going to really talk about how to fund arts integration. Because one of the main things that I hear that people have trouble with is funding. How are we going to fund this? Like, they want to do it, but they don't know how to make it work. And there's a lot of barriers to that. So we're going to get into that a little bit, but this video is for teachers, principals, and administrators. So anybody that comes across arts integration and wants to try to figure out how to make it work, this video is your starting point. Now, just in case you don't want to have to watch the whole entire thing, because, oh my goodness, I am a teacher too. I know you don't have time to sit down and watch a long video start to finish. You just want to get to the meat of the parts that you need to hear. So I've included some timestamps. You can, if you see a topic that you need right now that you don't need the whole entire video for, just go to that place where the time is stamped for that topic. We're going to talk about barriers to effective teaching and learning, but honestly, teaching and learning is not effective if it's not joyful, and we know that. Educators, we know that to our core. And what we have to do is get back to doing joyful teaching and learning to where teachers are enjoying their jobs and kids are enjoying the learning experiences. So that's what this is all about. That is what arts integration is about, and that is there's so much research about how arts integration impacts students in so many ways. And there's research about how it makes teachers, have a higher level of job satisfaction. Like, the research is there. Now, my teacher brain and my administrator brain have a hard time actually talking about barriers, because I think we've just been kind of conditioned not to think about those things. We don't think about barriers because we don't want to look at anything as if we don't want to look for deficiencies. And so we've kind of programmed ourselves not to talk about those things. But I think if we're going to move past the barriers, it's important for us to identify them and talk about them. So as far as getting back to that joyful and that effective teaching and learning, these are the barriers that I hear all the time from teachers. They don't have enough time to implement something like arts integration. They don't have the funding. Their school serves a poor demographic. They don't have community support. They just don't know how to fund it. And a lot of times teachers don't know how to fund things. I'm here to help you with that. There's pressure there. And let's face it, there's a lot of pressure to perform. You're trying to get your students to where they can perform on those assessments at the end of the year, because those assessments are supposed to show us what they've learned and how everything's going in the school. And yes, those are high stakes, and there's a lot of pressure there. And so that can be a huge barrier to doing anything like arts integration if you're constantly feeling like you're having to weed through the fluff to get to the meat of something. So we're going to talk about that too. And finally, knowledge. Not everybody knows how to just jump right in and teach with arts integration. Some people understand arts integration and totally know how to come up with a lesson, can't figure out what to do as far as classroom management goes. So there's lots and lots of things at play here where barriers come in. Teachers are doing a great job with their students, but the thing is, we want to do, what else can we do? And how can we make it joyful? Let's go on and talk about the good news. So the news is good, and I'm going to tell you why. Learning and teaching does not have to be worksheet after worksheet and test after test. It just doesn't. It just does not. If you're facing any of those barriers that we talked about, then I'm here to help you with those. All of my trainings are going to address time. They address the pressures behind arts integration and how you can make that fit in with the pressure of the testing and everything. And my trainings also help address your knowledge. So like, maybe you don't understand a visual. This is just hypothetical. Simple example. You need to teach a standard and you want to try arts integration. You don't have any supplies. You don't know how to find the time to do it. And you're not exactly sure about the art form, that's what these trainings will do. They will talk to you about differentiation, talk to you about how to assess it, talk to you about how to manage your classroom. It teaches you the big picture on how to make the lesson work. And not only that, but I'm giving you language to help you address the pressures. You'll have the language, you'll be able to talk to administrators about, this is what we did, and this is why we did it, and this is how they learned, and here's the evidence. All of that is built into my trainings. So that's the good news. Now, even more good news is we're going to talk about funding in this video. I said this video is about funding. The way I see it, there's two issues for educators, especially for like at the classroom level. There's two issues for funding. Funding materials is hard. And then funding like your training and your professional development is also kind of hard. And I know teachers don't always understand the ins and outs of school, how a school's budget comes together. So I'm here to kind of help with that. I want to talk you through some of that, but I want to address funding your materials first. You don't need fancy materials. I am here to tell you, every one of my trainings can be done with whatever you have in your classroom. If you have crayons, you can do the arts integrated lessons in every one of my trainings. If you have fancy schmancy watercolors, you can still do the lessons in my trainings, but you don't have to have anything fancy. You don't have to have anything expensive. You can use crayons and you can use cheap drawing paper for the majority of my lessons, and they're still high quality. So I'm telling you right now, materials is not something you have to worry about. If you got crayons, you can pretty much do this. Basic, if you have the most basic of student art supplies, you can do these lessons with your kids. But if you ever wanted to talk to me about how to fund like larger projects where there's like fancier materials involved and how you can like maybe paint a mural or something, we can do that too. But just know, as far as funding goes and making this happen for you at your school and in your classroom and in your district, don't worry about funding the materials yet. That is the least you need to worry about. You need to think about how are you going to fund your training, and that's what we're here for today. I think the most obvious place to look for funding for arts integration trainings, and you can also, as I'm talking right now, I'm going to talk mostly about funding trainings, which the trainings are the things that I offer. I don't sell art supplies, but I do have trainings that I offer. But some of these funds can also be used to buy materials. So, keep that in the back of your mind, even though I said don't worry about funding. The main thing, though, is that these title funds are available to help teachers be effective at their jobs. So I want you to look into Title I, which is school improvement. That's section 1003. School improvement funds can be used to help address school culture or test scores, and arts integration can help with that, and it's research-based. Title II, Part A, is supporting effective instruction. Again, how do you get better at your job? You learn new things. I'm constantly learning new things. I'm constantly learning new things about art. I'm constantly learning new things about the way students learn and how to teach them. You are going to be doing that too. That's being a lifelong learner. We have federal funds directed to help teachers with that. Title IV, Part A, is for student support and academic enrichment. I talked to you a little bit earlier. I said, my trainings address differentiation. So in those trainings, it talks to you about how to support students that are struggling. It also can help you enrich your instruction for students that need that academic enrichment. And again, in Title IV, Part F, which is subpart 4, there's awards for academic enrichment, similar to what I just mentioned. Now, a lot of federal funds depend on your school's level of free and reduced lunch or the poverty rate that you have in your demographics. The federal government is not tasked with funding schools. The federal government has the role in education of ensuring equity. So you may have noticed that everything I mentioned from those title funds does address equity. We want students at the poorest school in the nation to have the same opportunities to learn as the students at the richest school in the nation. So these funds are there to help address that, to help everything be equitable or more equitable. Of course, we're always striving for that goal. Now, since the federal government's role is not to completely fund the schools, that's the state's role. But like I said, the federal government does contribute funding for equity purposes. That's the reason the federal government even started the Department of Education, was to help ensure equity for students across the states. So we have all of those funds to help you do your job better. But here are some other funding ideas. So I said that the states are tasked with funding the education of the students in their state. So that's a state level responsibility. Your state will collect the federal funds from the federal government and disperse those. And your school district has, and your state has the discrepancy, the autonomy to sort of determine what the individual students need within those contexts so they can spend that money appropriately. So the federal government's not going to be like, you have to have an arts integration training for your teachers. Your school's job, your state's job, your local job is to identify that it's something that could improve the work you're doing, and then you have the money to support you in that. A lot of local communities will also help fund the schools. Some schools have bond issues, and they may have like an extra cent on sales tax in that town just to help support the schools at the local level. So there is some money that comes in from the local level. At the local level, I would also tell you to look into like your parent-teacher organizations. You might have, sometimes you might have local grants. The town that I live in has grants for teachers. There's just a nonprofit that offers grant money. So look into local partnerships. You may even have, you might be able to find a benefactor in your town that has a foundation or needs to make a charitable donation. Those are some ways that you can also fund this. And again, at the state level, the state does fund the schools. So there's state funds that you can look at too. And then at the national level, yes, we talked about the federal funding, but I also want you to think about things like DonorsChoose and Adopt a Classroom. And even national organizations like the National Arts Education Association, things like that can also help fund this. And at the state level, check your arts agencies as well. So in Mississippi, we have the Mississippi Arts Commission, and they help fund some things for schools too. If you're just discovering this on your own and you're taking this to an administrator that's never heard of arts integration, you're going to have to sell it. And even if you have an administrator that has heard of arts integration, you may still have to sell it. And I just wanted to tell you a few selling points here. First of all, this is all you can access trainings from me that are standards based. So there will be a training, and it will be me teaching you how to teach a standard through arts integration, a specific standard. If we don't have that one, if we don't have the standard that you're struggling with already, or the one that you want to teach, we can get you a training for that standard. We also have trainings that address overarching pedagogies like classroom management, social emotional learning. Everything is research-based, heavily research-based. I am an ASCD emerging leader, the class of 2015, so I have very, very well connected with ASCD. And as you know, ASCD does quite an amazing job at research and writing for the profession about teaching and learning and curriculum. And so I use that network on a regular basis to inform my practice, and it's heavily research-based. And I've tested these lessons. I have either taught them myself to my own students when I was in public schools, or I have visited schools and taught as a model lesson while teachers watched. Those are your selling points. And if you need any other research, if you want to talk to your administrators about how arts integration can improve teacher satisfaction with their jobs, et cetera, just reach out. I will point you in the right direction. And finally, these are the steps you need to take to make this happen. Choose from the curriculum that we have to offer after you've analyzed data for your school. If you realize that you've analyzed your data and you're stuck on something with your students and we don't have that training yet, we will make that training happen. So choose the training that you want, talk to your administration, ask them about all of these funding opportunities that I've presented, and then use what you learned to reach your students and overcome those barriers. I wish you the best of luck. Again, my name is Amanda Kulaba. If you need anything, reach out, and I'll see you later. Bye.